excited to announce the release of The Rift. It's available July 15th at all great bookstores. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. But I'd like to introduce to you Vaughn Collar. This is his first novel. It's a series. I think this is book 1 of 5. Don't quote me on that, please. But Vaughn is an actor. He's been in several movies. And he came to us and gave me a copy of his Rift. And I like the concept. I like the story. And so he's one of our latest and greatest authors. Vaughn, he spent his early years in Arkansas and living in British Columbia. He's also lived in Mexico, which helps to add a little bit of reflection in his writing. He also loves history and the environment, and that's where a lot of his imagination centers around, is the environment and the future, and what does that hold for us? How can the environment change us? The idea of the rift came to him one time when he was driving past a vacant field, and he just, I guess it kind of frightened him a little, and he compared that to the rest of the world and went, oh my, what would happen if there were weird creatures running around in there? What would that do to us as humans? And so with that and a little bit of magic, he created the Rift. Book 1 is Beginnings, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about that. I'm just going to read a little bit off of the cover, but you all can go up to our website and get more, or you can buy the book. Beginnings. While exploring ancient ruins, Ian stumbles on more than just glowing relics. He discovers magic. While deciphering the ancient ruins, Lucian can suddenly understand a forgotten language that no one else can read. Magic. So the series is basically centered around 2 professors, Ian and Lucian. And they both have their good points and their bad points to themselves, but their characters are amazing, and I really enjoyed reading this novel. But when this new clean energy, which you're going to learn about in chapter 1, which I read to you, it unlocks the gates that opens, and it brings out ancient creatures that now haunt the world, and these creatures are getting worse. They're not getting better, and it definitely opens up the dark to the light and the light to the dark. Evil awaits within the shadows for Ian and Lucian as they travel the unknown world of magical creatures while battling their inner demons of self-doubt. So if you enjoy digging through ancient ruins and discovering what has not been seen or read in thousands and thousands of years and putting together a puzzle, you're gonna love the series The Rift, especially book 1, Beginnings, by Vaughn Collar. So please enjoy chapter 1. Chapter 1. May 2nd, 2076, Scotland. It was a new day and a new age for energy. Peter McCormick stood at the site of the world's first commercial full-scale fusion reactor and watched as the sun rose across the distant North Sea. A light breeze blew, carrying the salty aroma of the ocean, and only a few wispy clouds were visible, a dull orange from the rising sun. A perfect day for a new beginning. Peter entered the building and made his way to his office. No longer would the world be scarred by the search for fossil fuel or the atmosphere polluted with greenhouse gas. The promise of clean, almost unlimited energy had fueled the imagination of just about everyone. Well, almost everyone. Various investment groups were still highly opposed to the reactor, especially anyone who had invested in gas or oil, for they stood to lose billions. Several times their political attacks to disprove the science had failed. However, this didn't mean they were giving up. Peter wasn't reflecting on the political atmosphere of the time. His concern was with the operation of the plant and the chiming from his phone. It was the Minister of Energy. Probably better if he chose visual feed. He used his best smile, practiced in front of a mirror countless times, and pressed answer. "Good morning, Minister." "And good morning to you, Peter. This is the day." "Yes, it is, sir," Peter hummed. I do have a busy schedule." "Of course, and I'm guessing calls from political figures are nigh high on that list." "Very well." The minister paused. "I presume it's a go?" "Yes, sir. We should be operational in about an hour," Peter replied. "And before I forget, thank you for your help with the press." I know what they can be like, bloody vampires, looking for the next juicy story." Both men laughed. Peter watched through the glass wall as the last member of his team walked through the door. "Minister, sir, I have to go. Hope you have your speech ready, including why you didn't tell the press." The minister laughed and smiled and disconnected the call. Peter was alone again with his thoughts. Recalling what had brought him to this point caused him to wander. He was proud of his work, proud of the team he had working with him. The project over 20 years in the making was his life's goal. Ever since what happened to the environment with the impacts of global warming and recovering from the recent nuclear war, he had dedicated himself to finding different sources of energy, a cleaner source. All past attempts were lessons of what not to do, and his team would succeed. As he walked the short distance from his office to the control room, Peter glanced at his team. His pride swelled just knowing what they were about to accomplish. He strode to his workstation, ready to review the lengthy checklist. Multitudes of safety precautions were essential. The proper functioning of the magnetic containment chamber was his main priority. He looked over the readings and felt somewhat relieved. The instruments displayed the generators were operating at peak proficiency. He ran through the checklist again and then again for good measures. His hands shook with the magnitude of the moment. He took a deep breath to calm himself. Making his crew nervous was the last thing he wanted to do. He cleared his throat. "Everyone, this is it. Just do your jobs and we'll be generating power soon." One last glance at his team gave him reason to pause. A few were studying him, but most were focused on their work. "It was time," Peter sighed. "Ready the lasers?" "Ready," a technician replied. "Reading nominal." The energy flow increased, raising the overall tension in the room, and a low background hum vibrated across the floor. A few techs glanced up with slight grins. Peter nodded at the lead technician. "Begin the hydrogen boost." "Boost phase startup," the man replied. Peter watched the dials as the pressure rose. It needed to reach 4 atmospheres before firing. He stepped over to Carolyn's station, his assistant. "Pressure's nominal for the laser engagement," Carolyn said. "Power up the lasers, 1 through 16, 10-second lapse. Engage now!" Peter almost yelled. The excitement of the moment was affecting him. One by one the lasers fired. After the 12th, a faint tremor rumbled through the building. Carolyn glanced at Peter and frowned. Peter studied her instruments and those of a nearby station. He felt reassured as he gave Carolyn a quick smile and nod. So far, so good. The 13th and 14th lasers fired. The tremor subsided with it, the palpable tension that was filling the room. The pressure inside the chamber caused the plasma to increase temperatures. Sensors showed a microscopic ball of pure energy was forming. The degrees skyrocketed, hotter than the inside of the sun, steadily increasing. Carolyn kept her focus on her panel. "Sensors show everything is still in the green." Peter nodded. Another rumble coursed through the building. A few nervous looks accompanied the subharmonic sound that was felt more than heard. The atoms inside the chamber were almost at the correct density and temperature needed to initiate fusion. "Carolyn?" Peter frowned. "Still good?" She shrugged, pointing at the readings. The 15th laser fired, and a loud beeping sounded. Peter glanced at the containment chamber and froze. Inside was a shimmering light resembling rolling ocean waves, and with a sudden crack in the outer shell, a blinding light blasted directly into the room. "Sir," a technician stated, "we might want to—" The 16th laser fired. A sensor blew, shooting a shower of sparks. Plasma-like heat erupted from a nearby electrical panel. Smoke billowed with an acrid odor of burning metal. The feed controlling the lasers spiked. The matter condensed to a pointed source, almost a singularity. A strong and rogue gravitational force erupted, causing the vessel to implode. The sudden burst of protons ripped apart the room, growing and accelerating the gravitational wave. The excited particles soared faster than any human sense could register. The energy rebounded, mimicking a hydrogen bomb. The blast blew through the reinforced concrete as if it were nothing more than paper, searing the countryside and destroying everything. The pressure condensed into something almost solid, with the rubble following behind. Nothing remained of the smaller towns north of Edinburgh. Edinburgh itself was just a smoking ruin. No one could or would survive. The singularity ejected straight up as an invisible trail of thickened vapors blistered the upper atmosphere. Satellites would not track the path as it soared toward the moon. The speed was nearly 10% of the speed of light. The passage of the singularity phased across an unusual disturbance, floating freely in space. Visible light bent as subatomic particles of electromagnetic waves condensed before expanding. The dark continuum was below normal detection thresholds, invisible to Earth's sensors, invisible to the human eye. The strong magnetic field shimmered only briefly before the waves intensified, thickening the inner structure and reallocating the basic characteristics of light. Now influenced by an unknown reality, the ambient condition dispersed into an awakening vibration, saturating the dielectric field in a consciousness not experienced on Earth for billions of years. Contributing to and expanding the inner matter, fleeting electrical sparks now swarmed from the invisible field. Stray atoms emitting random particles only added to the phenomena. The polarized radiation gave, only briefly, as the split between realities merged. Light shards sprinkled across the darkened expanse as the singularity passed across the moon's orbit. Earth spun as it slowly entered the shimmering rift. A slight warble echoed into the core's essence, similar to how spring's early breath awakens a flower's bloom. But the influence on Earth was only just beginning. The beginning of a new time, a new era for mankind, and his inevitable search for a replaceable energy source.